Hey everybody, it's Cauliflower here. I'm bringing you another character ranking for Battleborn, and today we're focusing on the character Thorn. Thorn is one of my favorite characters in the game. I always liked the Eldrid characters, not necessarily for any reason other than I just like the characters. Thorn's always great because she's a bowmaster, and everybody loves playing an archer in any sort of video game. The one thing that I love about Thorn is most archers are very limited in the way you can play them, in that you're supposed to sit way far back and snipe people. And Thorn's not like that at all. To be honest, one of the best ways to play Thorn is to get up in people's faces, and because she's got huge height on her jumps, to just jump around and make people miss you and just screw with them. But anyways, let's go ahead and look at the rankings that I give her here. So for the composite rank for Thorn, I give her an 8. She's a solid 8. She does have a few weaknesses that keep her from getting too high. Those main weaknesses are, 1, it takes a bit of skill to use her, and then 2, she's pretty weak, so if you do get targeted, you're going to get in a little bit of trouble. Luckily, she's got a lot of ways that you can get away from people, so we'll talk about that later. But her skill floor, I give her a 3, simply because it's not easy to hit anyone with any of her attacks except for her ultimate. So you've got to learn to play her well. You've got to learn to aim her well. She has low health, so if you get targeted, you're going to get killed quickly. So you have to position yourself well. But a lot of characters in Battleborn are like this. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to have a good time, and Thorn is just another one of those. Her skill stealing, I put it at an 8, just because, again, you could kind of say it's a little low at an 8, only because if you hit 100% of your shots with Thorn, she'd probably be the best character in the game potentially, but nobody's going to do that, so I put her at an 8. She's a very solid 8, could potentially be a skill ceiling of 9, but again, that means you have to be doing everything right with her. You have to position her correctly, you have to make sure you're targeting the right opponents at the right time, and you got to make sure you're using your skills in the right combinations. The next one is her healing and regen. Thorn is an Eldrid character, so she's got a little bit of regen. It's 7 per second, so I give her a 2 on this. Not much, but she's got a little bit, and she doesn't have a huge amount of health, so that 7 health regen, if you add that onto another piece of gear that does health regen, then you'll end up getting quite a bit of health regen overall. Below that is her attack. Thorn has got one of the most offensive skill setups in the game. All of her skills do huge amounts of damage, and so does her primary attack, so I give her a full 9 on this. If you're hitting people with all the damage on Thorn, you're just going to melt the entire team. Like I said, it's a little hard to hit them with everything, but if you can, she does a huge amount of damage, and the other team's going to absolutely hate you. Below that is her toughness. Now, toughness, again, I said this before, toughness is not simply how much health a character has, because Thorn does not have very much health, but it also takes into account things like how fast their regen is, if they've got damage reduction, or if they're ultra mobile. So Thorn is very mobile. However, if you do get targeted, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So she's a 4. It's a strong 4 that you could maybe give her a 5, simply because she's got a lot of defensive attributes. She's got a lot of agility. You can double the height of her jump and give her a pushback on her melee that can make it so that she's really hard to kill. But again, if you get targeted or if you get stunned with Thorn, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So you got to just make sure to position yourself so that you don't get targeted and you don't get stunned. And that doesn't mean position yourself way behind your team. It just means whenever the enemy team rushes you, back up, get away, get help from your team and whatnot. Below that is her movement. She's a very fast character, and like I said, you can double the height of her jump and give her a pushback on her melee. So I put her movement at an 8. She's a very quick character. If you play her, you'll know she's very agile, and that's one of her strengths. Next is her Battleborn damage. This one, I give her an 8. Again, you could put this a little higher if you were 100% accurate. If you were 100% accurate with Thorn, she would have a 10 on Battleborn damage and on minion damage too. However, you're not going to be 100% accurate, so I give her an 8. Always remember, each one of her skills are super useful against Battleborn. If you use Blight with a slow, it'll make it real easy for you to not only damage people with Blight, but then hit them with your other attacks. Her volley is great against Battleborn, especially if they're standing up against a wall. You shoot the volley at them. It bounces back through them and hits them twice. That's great. Her Wrath of the Wilds is a great finishing move on Battleborn that's got a lot of area of effect. So she's just great against Battleborn in general. And then minion damage is the same thing. Both her skills work just as well on minions as they do on Battleborn. You could say it works a little better on minions. And another thing to remember too for minions is she has penetrate on her arrows if you want to give that to her, so you could potentially give her a 9 on minion damage. I'm keeping her at a solid 8 just because she's not the easiest character to be accurate with, so I'm giving her an 8 on that. Her primary attack, I give her a 9 on this. There's two reasons for this. One, because you're going to have an extra bleed on it. That helps bump it up a little bit, and two, you're going to curse enemies so that they'll, well, actually there's three. You're going to curse enemies so you can see them behind walls. Anytime you hit somebody with a fully charged arrow, it'll outline them so that you can see them when they're behind walls. That's great. And then finally you can also get a penetrate on her primary attack, and that penetrate just pushes it over the top. So primary attack, I gave her a full 9 on that. Her secondary attack, isn't an attack. It's just aimed down sights. I only give her a 4 on this because, to be honest, you don't use it all that often. With Thorn, you want to be mobile, so most of the time, well, when you aim down sights, it slows you down, so you don't want to aim down sights all that often. However, it is very useful to increase your accuracy. It makes it easier to shoot people because it slows down the sensitivity on your aimer, which makes it a lot easier to hit people at a long range. So I give her a 4 on this, but to be honest, the secondary attack rating for Thorn doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Blight for Thorn, I only give her a 7. The reason I give her a 7 is because it's got a small area of effect, so you've got to use it very well in order to get the full use out of it. If you hit it perfectly, you could say it's an 8, but again, because it's got a small area of effect, you're not really going to hit it perfectly. It's better to use Blight on minion waves than on people, but again, like I said before, Blight is good on both Battleborn and on minion waves. The next one is her volley. Now, volley is my favorite thing with Thorn. This, you can get it to pass through enemies, so you can literally do thousands of damage by shooting a volley at a minion wave and an enemy team. It's probably one of my favorite skills in the game. It's just a whole lot of fun, especially when you hit somebody real hard with it, because they never really expect you as Thorn to be able to smash out that much damage that quickly with just a volley, but you can. So volley I give a full 9. It's a great skill. And then finally is her ultimate. It's Wrath of the Wild. This one's a great ultimate. You could potentially give it a 9. It's a real solid 8 that I gave it here, but it's got a huge area of effect. And once you hit level 10, you can put a Blight Field on it afterwards. So Wrath of the Wild is really one of the best ultimates in the game. The only thing about it is you really only want to use it on Battleborn, just because Thorn has so much damage with her Blight and so much damage with her Volley, and those are great against minions, that you want to keep Wrath of the Wild and only use it on enemy Battleborns. Now, the next three here are her early game ranking, her late game ranking, and her discipline. Now, early game with Thorn, you don't have her ultimate. That ultimate is a great finisher. Without the ultimate, it's kind of hard to finish people. So I give her only a 7. She still does good damage. She's just not as much as a finisher. But late game, once you get that ultimate and you get all the level ups on Thorn, Thorn's got a lot of good helix choices. I give her a 9 on that. The only reason she doesn't get a 10 is because she's got low health, and so if she does get singled out, she's kind of easy to kill. But like I said, she's got a lot of agility, so if you're playing her well, you just have to avoid enemies, and that'll take care of itself. But then finally is her discipline. With Thorn, you don't need a huge amount of discipline because she's got a lot of agility, and the main thing you do with her is just make sure not to get targeted. She's not a healer, so you don't have to worry about healing other people, and then you don't necessarily have to use her skills in any combination other than once the enemy gets low on their health. That's when you use skills to finish out a kill. But anyways, that's the ranking I give for Thorn. So if you have anything you'd like to add, you can add that in the comments, or if you disagree with my rankings for any reason, go ahead and add that. But that's my rankings for Thorn.